Welcome to the Israel Watch. The Hebrew media's comments and analysis have addressed Trump's threats to strike Iran, Tehran's warnings of responding to any attack on it or its nuclear facilities, as well as the new Israeli aggression on the southern suburb of Beirut. In addition, attention has been given to the current reality in the Gaza Strip after the resumption of ground and air aggression on the sector. There has also been a focus on the situation in the territories occupied in 1948 and the operations of Palestinian resistance fighters there. We discussed these topics with Charlotte Cates, International Coordinator of Samidun Palestinian Prisoner Solidarity Network. Hello and welcome to this episode.
Thank you.
In this context, the Hebrew media has given significant attention to media leaks indicating that Iran is prepared to respond to any attack by targeting American interests in the region. This was highlighted by one of the correspondents in the Hebrew media.
כן, צהריים טובים יניר, דיווח מאוד מאוד מעניין בטלגרף הבריטי שמצטרף באמת למהלומות המילוליות שהולכות ומחיפות בין איראן ובין ארצות הברית, בין טראמפ ובין חמינאי. לפי הדיווח הזה, בצבא איראן שוקלים לתקוף באופן צבאי באי דייגו גרסיה, אי המפציצים מה שנקרא, אותו אי שארצות הברית מקדמת אליו את המפציצים שלה ואת הכלים שלה כמוכנות לתקיפה באיראן. אומר גורם איראני לטלגרף הבריטי, בתוך הצבא האיראני יש מי שתוהה האם נכון לתקוף את הכלים האמריקניים בכטב"מים ובטילים, או אולי אפילו לעשות איזושהי תקיפת אזהרה מסביב כדי להראות שאנחנו לא סתם מדברים, אנחנו גם יכולים לעשות, וזה כאמור קורה על רקע החרפה של הטונים בין טראמפ ובין חמינאי. כשראינו את טראמפ שמדבר באותו רעיון ברשת NBC על כך שארצות הברית עשויה לתקוף את איראן בפצצות כמו שהיא לא ראתה, ראינו גם את התגובה של חמינאי שאומר שאיראן לא חוששת ותגיב לכל מתקפה. חמינאי גם מאיים על ישראל כי הוא מבין שהציר הוא ציר אמריקני-ישראלי.
Well, obviously in this report here, Charlotte, the Israeli correspondent fears Iran's response to any aggression that might occur from the Americans or even the Israeli entity. What does this indicate?
Well, it indicates the fact that Iran is a very strong power in the region. It has a strong military, a strong economy, and a strong basis for defending itself and protecting itself and really the people of the region against this ongoing aggression. That? Well, they have to be aware of that because they put so much energy and resources into attempting to assassinate scientists, into attempting to undermine Iran's ability to create that strong basis. They know that Iran has a strong military. This is on display for the world to see. They know that it's not like attempting to attack a population who have been living under their military occupation for over half a century, which is what they're trying to do in Gaza right now. They know that
But what do they fear exactly? Nuclear weapons?
It's not just nuclear weapons. I mean, the fact is that the Zionist regime, with all of the U.S. weapons that they've been provided, have been unable to defeat the resistance in the tiny besieged Gaza Strip for the past 18 months. They've been unable to defeat the resistance there. They've been unable to defeat the resistance in southern Lebanon. They've been unable to defeat Yemen when they are facing Iran, a very strong power with a very strong military and a very strong base of popular support. They know that they simply can't just rely on the fact that they have these U.S. warplanes to carry out their attacks for them. They're not going to have an easy road ahead of them if they continue this path of warmongering.
Then, taking into consideration what just highlighted, Charlotte, what did the Israelis understand from Iran saying that they will forcefully respond to any attack on them?
Well, they understand that Iran is not simply going to stand back and allow itself to be bombed and allow itself to be attacked and allow its security and the security of the region to be constantly put at risk by the warmongering and attacks and aggressive expansionism of the Zionist regime and its U.S. backers.
So these threats, basically, they took their toll on the Israelis, as we are actually seeing and highlighting in these reports. And how do you think they would respond to that?
Well, one thing we've seen is that particularly in comparison to Iran, to Palestine, to Lebanon, to Yemen, the Zionist regime does not have a strong home front. They are rent with internal disagreement. They are unwilling fundamentally to fight or to take any risks, any personal risks, in order to secure their ongoing expansionist, aggressive attacks. They insist on the right to attack with no response, and they know that that's simply not going to happen if they carry out their war plans against Iran.
However, the recent Israeli aggression on Beirut's southern suburb was a focal point in the Hebrew media, as it represents a significant security development that could impact the course of aggression against Lebanon.
נוסיף למשוואה הזו שכמובן גם המוסד למודיעין ולתפקידים מיוחדים היה מעורב בפעולה הזו של החיסול. אז אתה מבין לבד אולי את הכיוון, ולפנות בוקר, בעקבות ההבנה שאותו חסן עלי בדיר עומד לשגר את הפיגוע הזה כלפי האזרחים הישראלים, מטוסי קרב של חיל האוויר תוקפים לפנות בוקר שוב בדחיה בביירות את הדירה המבצעית שבה הוא היה. הוא נהרג, ייתכן שיחד איתו נהרגו פעילי חיזבאללה נוספים, על פי דיווחים בלבנון היו שם 4 הרוגים, והסיפור הוא כמובן הפעם השנייה כבר שישראל תוקפת בדחיה בביירות, תוך כדי הפסקת האש לכאורה, כך שיש לנו כללי משחק חדשים מאז ה7 באוקטובר, פעם שנייה כאמור, ב3.5 חודשים האחרונים של הפסקת האש, שחיל האוויר הישראלי תוקף בדחיה בביירות.
מצד אחד אור, אנחנו רואים את התקיפות של ישראל, ורואים, כמו שאתה אומר, שמשנים כאן את ההתנהלות לפחות כשיש הפרות, מצד שני, יש הפרות מהצד השני, כלומר, בין אם חיזבאללה מודה שזה הוא או שזה לא הוא, החיים כאן, או לפחות בצפון, מתחילים להיות קשים ומורכבים, אנשים כבר חושבים אם לחזור או לא. זאת אומרת, ההתנהלות של צה"ל עדיין לא משנה את המציאות הזאת.
Well, what is the background of Israelis' repeated aggression and repeated attacks on southern suburb of Beirut specifically?
They obviously, as we can see, the Zionist regime never respects a so-called ceasefire. Instead, they violate it repeatedly, time and time again.
Not only the villages at the borders, but they extended that.
And now they've been attacking Beirut. They're attacking the southern suburbs of Beirut. They're carrying out these attacks continuously. They want to secure a change in the rules of engagement where they can attack at any time, and they want to secure that there won't be a response to that attack, which, I mean, is really just a fantasy on the part of the Zionist regime. They want to carry out these kinds...
So this is an escalation. It's a new phase.
This is absolutely an escalation. It's an escalation of the ongoing reality of ceasefire violations that the Zionist regime has been carrying out from the very first moment that it signed one of these deals that it absolutely doesn't commit to.
Okay. However, on the ongoing Israeli attacks on Lebanon, an Israeli commentator stressed the importance of avoiding embarrassment for the Lebanese state, which refrains from responding militarily to these attacks.
הנקודה היחידה שצריך להיזהר בה זה איך למצוא את האיזון בין מצד אחד את אותה הרתעה שישראל משמרת אותה, כולל את הפעולה היותר משמעותית שהייתה היום בביירות, ומצד שני לא לפגוע ביכולת של ממשלת לבנון ובלגיטימציה שלה לאט לאט להשליט את מרותה הלבנון. כי אם אנחנו נתקוף באופן יותר מדי פראי, וממשלת לבנון כבר לא תוכל להסביר מה היא עושה על מנת למנוע את התוקפנות הישראלית, אז זה מה שנקרא כבר לגלוש מעבר לקו הנכון, ואני מקווה שאצלנו יודעים לנהל את האירוע הזה בצורה מאוזנת.
ויש מי שקושר היום, ראש הממשלה לשעבר בנט, שאומר אם יש ירי מלבנון צריך לתקוף בטהרן, תחבר את הדברים.
לא, זה, אגב, זה קצת דומה לאמירה האמריקאית, שבטח נחזור אליה עוד מעט, שאומרת כל תקיפה של החות'ים תחשב כאילו איראן עמדה מאחוריכן. האמירה האמריקאית לא בדיוק יש לה כיסוי עד עכשיו, מאז החות'ים ירו על ישראל לבד, נדמה לי זה 10 פעמים, ולא בדיוק האמריקאים תקפו את איראן, ואני חושב שהאמירה הזאת של בנט היא קצת לא בפרופורציה.
What's your opinion on this Israeli commentators saying that warning or even warning about not embarrassing the Lebanese state with these aggression or these attacks on southern suburbs specifically?
I mean, this is sort of the realist approach within the Zionist regime, which is recognizing the reality that you're never going to attempt, if they're trying to force so-called normalization with the Zionist regime upon Lebanon, they're never going to be able to do that when they're constantly bombing Lebanon and attacking the villages in the south, attacking Beirut, carrying out assassination operations on an ongoing basis. And the reality is that the resistance in Lebanon is very strong. The resistance in Lebanon is living up to its obligations and, allowing the state to defend itself.
Here he actually highlighted that do not embarrass the Lebanese government that lacks military capabilities also. That's a weakness that the Israelis have actually seen and taken advantage of, in your opinion?
They've absolutely taken advantage of this, and this has been partially because the Lebanese military has been locked into this reliance on the United States for weaponry.
So Netanyahu is not behaving strategically correct towards Lebanon.
Well, this is certainly their view. They are, and they're likely correct in the fact that this is exacerbating and accelerating the demise of the Zionist regime rather than kind of preserving its long-term hegemony. And of course, Netanyahu is interested in saving his own political career, which requires constant escalation and maintenance of the state of absolute war at all times.
Okay. However, Israeli social media reacted to the attacks on Lebanon, and here are some comments from the Zionist activists.
Haimon, it doesn't matter who launched the rockets. Lebanon launched them, and Lebanon will bear the consequences. Tal, in the end, the Israeli administration just lies. Hezbollah is still, to this day, a stronger and more dangerous armed enemy than Hamas, yet the administration reached a ceasefire agreement with Hezbollah while refusing to reach an agreement with Hamas. Roy, we attacked Hezbollah in Beirut, not Lebanon. What changed? Nothing.
What's your take on these Zionist activist comments on social media, especially the claim that Hezbollah, according to one of the Zionist activists, that Hezbollah remains strong despite the Israeli narrative that they have weakened Hezbollah, especially after the latest blow of war?
Hezbollah does remain strong. There's really no question about that. I mean, when we saw the massive numbers, the sea of people that absolutely flooded the streets of Beirut, 1.5 million people to mourn Syed Hassan Nasrallah and Syed Hashim Safiuddin, this showed the very strong and deep base of support that Hezbollah and the resistance have in Lebanon. And that is also accompanied by an ongoing military capacity that Hezbollah has as well. The fact that the Zionist regime has carried out war crimes, has assassinated great leaders, has carried out a campaign of destruction and attacks against the south of Lebanon, has done nothing to undermine the reality that Hezbollah is a strong resistance movement that is deeply rooted in the people and that is never going to be undermined or destroyed by the bombs and the airplanes of the U.S. and the Zionist regime.
And do you think that these Israeli Zionists that we just heard their own comments on social media, they are aware of the scenario that you highlighted? They are aware that there is a support system and they still have all the military capabilities to protect themselves and even
when they are being realistic,
yes,
they are aware of such things. No matter how they put out an endless stream of propaganda that's meant to deny this reality and it's meant to make their own citizens believe in unreality. But if they're going to come to terms with the facts and material basis
because it's a huge propaganda that Netanyahu has been working upon. We have weakened Hezbollah, we have weakened Hamas, because these scenarios, at some point you believe that they can believe them, but obviously they're not.
Well, the fact is that these crimes that they carry out, they have an impact, they have an effect. They assassinate great leaders, they kill martyrs, they take the lives of precious young people who are fighting for the future of their country. But that doesn't destroy the basis of Hezbollah. It doesn't destroy the basis of Hamas or any of the Palestinian resistance organizations.
Okay. Moving to Gaza, a former Israeli general commented that the continuation of fighting in Gaza and the refusal to implement the captive release agreement and moving to the second phase is not in Israelis' interest, as we will see.
הממשלה לא רוצה להפסיק את המלחמה בעזה. כאילו, לחזור לשלב ב' שהיה הפסקת המלחמה, יציאת כוחות צה"ל מעזה, הממשלה לא רוצה לקיים את הדבר הזה, לפי דעתי די בצדק בעניין הזה, ואז אנחנו תקועים.
למה בצדק?
מפני שיש לזה מחיר של הפסקה מוחלטת, יציאה החוצה, ערבויות שיצטרכו לתת מדינות מערביות, כולל ארצות הברית, ואם אנחנו נהיה עם ערבויות עם ארצות הברית, אנחנו נהיה בבעיה לחזור
שלונסקי, אני
לדבר
רק
הזה.
רוצה להזכיר שגם להסכם שישראל אישרה בממשלה, שארצות הברית ערבה לו, גם אגב קטר ומצרים, השלב הזה מופיע. זה לא הפריע לנו לחזור להילחם ולא לקיים את שלב ב'.
אני מקווה, אבל יש פה דילמה גדולה, אני רק רוצה להגיד, דיברו פה כאילו בעניין של לבנון, שהיום זהו הסתיים, הוכחנו לחיזבאללה, נתנו מכה, העסק בלבנון רק מתחיל, המלחמה על הפסקת האש, לא הסתיים העניין הזה, אנחנו הקינו בדחיה, בואו נראה לאן זה הולך. לגבי עזה, נכנסנו לעזה, לא כל כך ברור לאן הדבר הזה הולך. אני אגב לא אהבתי את כל השבוע האחרון שקראו לזה מלחמת בן גביר, אני לא חושב שזה נכון, אני חושב שנכנסו כדי להגביר את הלחץ לשחרור החטופים. זה לא עובד. זה לא עובד, אנחנו רואים שזה לא עובד. יש לנו צוות משא ומתן שמתנהל בארצות הברית, ולא כך מתנהל מה שנקרא בערבית, מנהל אותו מישהו שלא מכיר את הנושא, יש תלונות מצוותי המשא ומתן שהעסק הזה לא מתקדם, אנחנו די תקועים בעניין הזה.
What do you think of the former Israeli general's assessment that failing to actually implement the second phase of the Gaza agreement is not in the interest of the Israelis?
Once again, what we have is this definition of how they want to self-describe their interests. The Israeli regime has always been a genocidal project, and right now it's continuing to carry out that genocide in Gaza, both through bombing from the sky and also through imposed starvation and famine that's being created by them blocking any kind of aid or food entering Gaza for the past month. This person, wants to extend the Zionist project for a long number of years, and Netanyahu and company are not so interested in the long-term survival of the Zionist project. They want to preserve their own political careers first and foremost, and they're willing to sacrifice that future for that.
Okay. Moving to the 1948 occupied territories after repeated operations by Palestinian resistance fighters against Israeli occupation forces and settlers, the Hebrew media published statistics showing the number of attacks carried out by Palestinians there.
אבל בשירות הביטחון הכללי מזהים בתקופה האחרונה בהמשך ישיר לפיגוע אתמול שהתרחש בצומת התשבי סמוך ליוקנעם בצפון הארץ, צבר של אירועים שמצביעים על כך שערבים ישראלים מנסים לבצע פיגועים. אני מציע שנראה את הנתונים עכשיו על המסך. נכון לשנת 2025 התרחשו 3 פיגועי ירי על ידי ערבים ישראלים, 50 ערבים ישראלים נעצרו לחקירת שירות הביטחון הכללי בחשד לפעילות טרור, 34 כתבי אישום הוגשו נגד ערבים ישראלים. צריך לומר ולשים את הדברים האלה בהקשר. מרבית הפיגועים כמעט כולם מתבצעים על ידי פלסטינים ללא תעודת זהות כחולה, אבל בשירות הביטחון הכללי מזהים צבר של אירועים בהם גם ערבים ישראלים מנסים לבצע פיגועים, כפי שהראינו עכשיו בנתונים, כמו האירוע אתמול, הפיגוע אתמול שהתרחש בצומת התשבי סמוך ליוקנעם, שם נרצח אזרח ישראלי בשנות ה-80 לחייו.
Of course, speaking about the Palestinian territories, of course, the latest news coming in, Ben Gvir desecrated the Al-Aqsa Mosque today. What does this indicate in your opinion?
What we've seen time and time again from the Zionist regime is more aggression, more offenses, more genocide. I mean, right now in the West Bank, there are 50,000 people displaced from their homes in refugee camps. There are constant attacks on Al-Aqsa Mosque, on Jerusalem, attempts to change its identity. Palestinians in occupied Palestine 48 have been living in a state of terror for 77 years that's only been intensified. And so, these kinds of attacks by Ben Gvir, by Netanyahu, by the entire Zionist project, is based on the elimination of all Palestinians.
And is it based on the green light that's given to them by the Americans?
Absolutely. That's how it's empowered. It's empowered by billions and billions of dollars of U.S. taxpayer-funded weaponry being provided to the Zionist regime, including intelligence support, including diplomatic, political, and military support. The fact is, when we talk about this genocide,
especially after the latest batch of weapons given by Trump to the Israelis.
Absolutely. This is a U.S. Zionist genocide, and it's a U.S. Zionist assault. It's a U.S. Zionist racism. This is a joint crime, and they should be held jointly accountable.
On the other hand, Charlotte, what does these numbers indicate regarding the increasing Palestinian resistance operations in the 1948 occupied Palestine or occupied territories?
Since the 7th of October, 2023, there's been a massive attempt by the Zionist regime to really suppress Palestinians in occupied Palestine 48. You've had a number of people, including women, arrested for just posting sympathy with Gaza on social media. They've refused to include Palestinian prisoners from 48 within the exchange agreements. But what we're seeing is that much like in 2021, where Palestinians in 48 rose up to defend their land and their people during Saif al-Quds, or the Unity Intifada, we're beginning to see tendencies and trends toward this direction once again, because the fact is that all of the land is Palestinian, and it belongs to the Palestinian people and not to this imposed illegitimate Zionist regime.
Okay. Now to Netanyahu's administration budget, which was passed in the Knesset and revealed a significant deficit, along with additional taxes imposed on Israelis.
בעיקר תקיעת אצבע בעין, גם למילואימניקים שמתפארים שהם מסייעים להם, ובעיקר למעמד הביניים. תראה עודד, אנחנו נמצאים במציאות תקציבית מאוד מסובכת, כי צריך להוסיף עשרות מיליארדי שקלים לתקציב הביטחון, והצורך הזה ברור. גם צריך להעביר תקציב מדינה, כי זה משדר איתות חיובי לשווקים. אבל השאלה היא, איזה הרכב של תקציב אתה מעביר? וכשאתה מצד אחד מעלה מיסים על הציבור, מעלה את המע"מ, מקפיא את קצבאות הילדים, מקפיא את מדרגות מס הכנסה, לוקח יום הבראה מכל עובד כדי לממן את המלחמה. אבל ביד השנייה, מביא לשיא את הכספים הקואליציוניים, מביא לשיא את התקציב של מוסדות הפטור החרדיים שלא מלמדים ליבה, מביא לשיא את תקציב הישיבות, לא סוגר משרדים מיותרים, איזה זכות מוסרית יש לך להטיל מיסים על הציבור דווקא בשנה כזאת? איזו זכות מוסרית יש לך להקפיא את קצבאות הביטוח הלאומי, להעלות את דמי הביטוח הלאומי, להקפיא את מדרגות מס הכנסה למילואימניקים, ובאותה נשימה להגיד להם, אנחנו מתמרצים יותר את מי שמשתמט, וזה בעצם מה שאישרה הקואליציה היום.
Well, how will this budget impact the Israeli citizens' living conditions, including taxation here?
Well, it definitely appears that this budget is going to increase the ongoing social conflict, tension, and disruption within the Zionist society, because what we're seeing time and time again is this conflict between secular and religious Zionists, both of whom are united around their willingness to carry out genocide in Palestine, but are absolutely in a battle over how to divide up the spoils of that genocide among themselves. And once again, we're seeing something very similar in the United States, where we're seeing this absolute rush to throw billions and billions and billions of dollars into the ongoing development of the war
taxation also.
Yeah, and it's going to, and of course that's going to cost the average person an increasing amount, and it's going to take away from the resources essentially that they've been receiving as a benefit of genocide and expropriation of Palestine.
Now, Israeli social media was filled with widespread criticism of the Israeli budget, and here are some reactions.
Amit Klar. The approved budget places a heavy burden on those who serve in the military and prioritizes those who evade service. This will not end well. The administration's financial policy will destroy the trust between citizens and the state. Asaf Shahar. The budget has ballooned due to this administration's incompetence, and the deficit has reached 4.5%. The reason? 1.6 billion shekels were allocated to fund the ultra-Orthodox autonomy, which does not contribute in any way to the State of Israel, not in military service nor in the economy. Also, millions are spent on religious schools. Sarah Shabtai. This budget is only suitable for administration of destruction that rules here. Shame on you. You are destroying the country, the economy, and everything else. You are criminals.
Your comment, Charlotte.
You know, what we're seeing here really is the long-term effects of the Palestinian resistance and its ability to affect the future of the Zionist project. When this kind of crisis over the budget isn't something that's happening in a vacuum. It's happening because...
And it's not a new thing, by the way.
No, it's this battle for the future of the Zionist society and how it's going to be defined has been going on for decades.
And now probably increase more with the wars occurring on various fronts.
Absolutely. That's why we're seeing these Zionist protests in Tel Aviv every day. They're not demanding really an end to the war in order to stop the genocide, live up to their responsibilities under international law, or protect Palestinian lives, but because they view it as an existential crisis for the future of the Zionist project that they want to see.
Okay, Charlotte Cates, International Coordinator of Samidun Palestinian Prisoner Solidarity Network. Thank you very much for joining us in this episode.
Thank you so much.
Dear viewers, our time is up. Thank you for watching.